Hugely damning revelations there by Christian Michel. I want to introduce now my colleague Sanjay Brakta, who along with Ankit Kumar put this special India Today interview together. Sanjay, first and foremost, many congratulations for this massive scoop. It's really set the nation's news agenda. I also want to tell our viewers that this morning there were channels that were getting very excited, jumping up and down, saying that they've been able to track down Christian Michel's address, that they were outside his door speaking to his neighbors. Whereas Sanjay Brakta, video journalist Yogender and Ankit Kumar had the real deal. They had the full interview with Christian Michel, breaking first on India Today. So well done, superb. Also with us at this time is my colleague Gautam Khaitan. Remember, what Christian Michel is saying is very significant, but what he's saying needs to be taken with a lot of salt, because he's one of the main accused, and Gautam has been assessing very carefully the inconsistencies in what Christian Michel is saying. Also, at this time, I want to go across live to Lugano in Switzerland. Joining us from there via Skype is my colleague Jugal Purohit. He's trying to track Haschke and Gerosa. Remember, those are the two Italian middlemen who we've seen Christian Michel try and pass the entire blame on. And Jugal Purohit has been hot on their tail, trying to find out where they are. He's been reporting that they've gone underground, very difficult to try and find. We'll get live updates from Lugano in Switzerland in just a moment. Also with us right outside Vijay Chowk is my colleague Atir Khan. He's tracking the Enforcement Directorate for us. Remember, soon after this interview went on air, the CBI called in Gautam Khaitan, based, we are told very clearly, on the revelations made by Christian Michel in this big India Today interview. Remember, before this, the one man who's been spoken of all this while, nobody had heard from him. Not the Enforcement Directorate, not the Central Bureau of Investigation. For 40 minutes, Sanjay Brakta and Ankit Kumar grilled Christian Michel, and that is something that I know that the Intelligence Bureau, the CBI and the ED was looking at very, very carefully all through the day. So, welcome to all our reporters. I want to go across to Sanjay Brakta first. Sanjay, how difficult was it to try and pin Christian Michel down? He's been hugely elusive. He also says at one part in your interview that he's willing to share all the documents and the information that he has with India's investigative agencies. So how do you see things move from here now that India Today has put out this big exclusive interview of yours with Christian Michel?
Rahul, thank you very much for the congratulations. But yes, it was very difficult to nail a person who's the main middleman in the storm, which was initiated by the AgustaWestland helicopter deal. Yes, it was very difficult. Very candidly, my colleague Ankit Kumar and me persuaded him to speak to us, and he had to speak to us, and finally he spoke to us. We are not taking his word to be very true and true all the truths, he said. But yes, he said something which may change the direction of the probe. He disassociated himself from the other two middlemen, which is Guido, Haschke and Carlo Gerosa. Obviously, for reasons known to him very well, and he pointed out one thing very prominently, that Gautam Khaitan and Mauritius is the place where the money is, the kickbacks are. Whether those kickbacks went back to Italy or whether those kickbacks were paid to some invisible hands in India, that has to be investigated, and that is the point our investigative agencies.
Stay with me, Sanjay, stay with me. I want to go across to Lugano in Switzerland. You've been telling me, Jugal, about how it's been really difficult to try and track down Guido, Haschke and Carlo Gerosa. Also, I want to tell our viewers that you were standing outside their door. The cops were called in and Jugal was sent away. They escorted him to the railway station, sent him back to Italy to ensure that he wouldn't hang around there. They wanted him away. So clearly, these are people who don't want the Indian media on their tail. What have you been able to find so far, Jugal?
Well, Rahul, it's been extremely interesting. Apart from what you've said, I must also share with our viewers that we've been speaking to people around their residences, their neighbors. In Gerosa's case, somebody from his own residence came down to tell us that they will be around shortly. Of course, they weren't aware just who I was, and that's why they were speaking so freely to me. But Rahul, what is important is the feeling that I get, which is that these people are continuing with their normal lives here in Switzerland. Of course, they do not appear before us for obvious reasons, but it does seem that notwithstanding the red corner notice, which is now 6 months old almost, there is absolutely no disruption. I was trying to get in touch with the Swiss police out here. They were very categorical in saying that they will not make a comment on individual cases. But to me, it does appear, Rahul, that there needs to be a lot more pressure and action from the Swiss side. Having said that, there's also another side to the story where the Indian side comes in. Both these gentlemen, Rahul, our viewers must know, were arrested, were taken to Italy. They deposed there. They were there in the court questioned by the CBI and the Defence Ministry officials from India. Why is it that after that the trail has gone cold? Why is it that Indian authorities have not been able to put their pressure, get extradition proceedings, make even a request for the same? So the fault perhaps lies on both sides. And Rahul, there's one more quick point, if I can tell you. While there's a lot of scrutiny about the roles of these middlemen who, of course, fallen apart since a very long time, the fact is that there are still investigation or headway or even initiation of a probe about the role of the Defence Ministry's own bureaucracy. Because in this case, as we're all aware, Rahul, because we've covered the defence beat, no procurement actually takes place without the signatures or the assent of the bureaucrats. There is no movement whatsoever on that, and I'm given to understand by investigating agencies that perhaps that will be the next big breakthrough in this case, when they start looking inside the Defence Ministry, is how did the entire process got managed. Because in the process, there's only bureaucrats who are largely in a majority while sitting. The Air Force then only plays a technical advisory role. So this is what is happening out here in Lugano. These people continue with their normal lives away from our cameras. But the fact is there needs to be much more from the side of the Swiss authorities as well as the Indian side, Rahul.
Okay, stay with me. Atir Khan, what's been the response through the day from the Central Bureau of Investigation, the Enforcement Directorate? I was getting several calls from senior officials who are very keen on knowing what Christian Michel told us. Remember, it's usually journalists who are chasing investigative officers, wanting to understand from them what's the latest on the investigation. It's very rare that top investigative officers are calling, wanting to know what a journalist has done. So tell me, Atir, what did Gautam Khaitan tell the CBI when he was interrogated? What is the CBI and the ED making of this big India Today interview, Atir?
Well, simply remarkable is what they said, though indeed in the initial stages they were taken aback. The reason being that, you know, they themselves had sent several requests to Interpol to track down his exact location, Rahul, and they were very keen that they track him down, and then they sent the request to that proper place for his deportation or extradition. But that was in the process, of course. But now that they know that the coordinates of that person is known, it is in fact a fillip for the investigation. So far they have been only trying to find out, but we have been able to reach there. The interrogatories have been sent, the Interpol has also been requested, but now today, immediately after, you know, the interview was aired, Gautam Khaitan was called to CBI for interrogation, and it happened today. He was not scheduled to be there for questioning, but then he was called in on the certain, you know, starting revelations which Christian Michel had made. They wanted to probe him. He has been evasive so far, and today what we are learning is today also he continued to be evasive. However, there are certain leads now which the agencies can follow, but the larger question is, Rahul, that how will the agencies proceed? They know that he has given an offer that he will not come back to India, but he's willing to cooperate in the investigation through the Indian mission. Okay. And now we have a precedent of Hadley. His video, you know, his statement was recorded through video conference. So will the agencies go for that option? Now that issue has been looked into. Okay, Gaurav, is that something that Indian agencies will consider? Because he says you gave a mass murderer like David Hadley a chance to depose via video conferencing. Is something that I should do as well. And I'm also very keen on understanding from you the inconsistencies, because as I pointed out earlier, we have to listen carefully to what Christian Michel is saying and yet not necessarily believe every word of what he says.
Spot on. Is he trying to mislead investigators? That's question number one. I interviewed Manohar Parrikar, the defense minister. He says Haschke and the others, Khaitan, the others, all of them were handling just pocket change, 25 crore, 30 crore, 40 crore. Perhaps that was money that was meant for officials. Who was handling that big money, Rahul? Where was that big money coming in? That's question number one. If that big money was going into Christian Michel, who was he sharing that with? How is he giving clean chits to all and sundry? That's point number one. Point number two, He says officials were monitoring this deal, officials were handling this deal. You and I well know officials don't handle all deals. Deals are handled at a much bigger level. Why is he giving them a clean sheet? Haschke says Air Chief Marshal Tyagi was used as a tool to make bigger inroads. Where was he used to make bigger inroads? In Italy? It defies logic that all the money was being routed back to Italy. The deal was in India. The kickbacks were meant for a deal in India, and the money was being paid in Italy to who? That is something, there is lack of clarity on that issue. What's also very clear, what Christian Michel claims, he was only handling logistics. India doesn't use middlemen. That's something very clear. No middlemen in defense deals. So what was he doing in India? Who was he talking to? All of these are questions that he needs to come to India and answer, is what my sources tell me.
Okay. See what Christian Michel is trying to do. He's trying to give all politicians a clean sheet, trying to say that the Congress wasn't corrupt, Congress leadership wasn't corrupt. He's also saying that the Modi government is not to blame. Very quickly and in 20 seconds each, I'll start first with Sanjay Brakta on what happens next. How are the Indian investigative agencies, in your view, likely to go after this interview in terms of trying to get Christian Michel to say all of this before a judge, try and get him to say this before a magistrate, as opposed to just saying this in the course of a television interview? Sanjay.
Well, Rahul, this is a big question mark on the Indian investigative agencies. They are not able to reach him, though they know that he is in Dubai. He's running a company which is just alongside the airport. Everybody knows that. Immigration department of the Indian High Commission inquired about that, and they know the exact location. Why didn't they question him? Number two, obviously Christian Michel will try to defend himself, but he's worried, man. He don't want it to come back. He's quoting Amitabh Bachchan took 25 years to clear his name in Bofor's case, so he don't want it to come back. He is ready to assist Indian investigative agencies in Indian High Commission in UAE, where ED and CBI can come question him. There can be a video link. He is ready to share all the documents. Now it's up to the Indian investigative agencies whether they wanted to clear the air on this, or they wanted to keep it going on and confusing the people where the money is, where it went, and who are the real
Jugal Purohit, very quickly, what's happening in Switzerland next? Because you've got Haschke and Gerosa there. All of India is looking for them. They seem to be content leading their lives. What should the Indian government be doing, and what's the likely response from the Swiss authorities going to be?
Well, Rahul, the story actually now moves forward along three lines. The first is, of course, the appeal. We'll have to see what's the outcome of that here in Italy. The second is, very interestingly, why isn't the Indian government interested in getting people like Giuseppe Orsi and Bruno Spagnolini, if not for arrest, at least for questioning and clarification? They were, after all, the ones who were driving the entire deal. They were the biggest officials. And the third point, Rahul, all of it depends now on just how much pressure the Indian government manages to put on the Swiss authorities. Remember, when the Italians wanted in 2013, Gerosa and Haschke were both arrested and were extradited to Milan, where they deposed before the court. If that can happen for Italy, why isn't that? Is India not pushing strong enough? That's the real question from here, Rahul.
That's a very, very significant point that you're making, and I must also tell you, Jugal, publicly, I've already told you this in private, that Sanjay Brakta got us Christian Michel. Now the onus is on you to track down both Haschke and Gerosa, and I wish you all the very best. Sanjay, for a cracker of an interview, thank you very much. Thanks also to Jugal Purohit for joining us from Switzerland. Lots riding on you, Jugal, over the next 48 hours. We're watching very carefully. Atir Khan and Gaurav Sawant for joining me on the newsroom tonight. Thank you very much. We're slipping into a quick break.